Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of the Pangolin Podcast. I'm your host, Toby Jermyn. Thank you very much for joining me. In each episode, I've invited a professional wildlife photographer to imagine themselves in a remote location, and along with their camera gear, they're allowed to bring 5 photographs to hang on the wall of their humble dwelling. Now, 4 of these must be their own, and the final image is one they admire by another photographer. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the images as we talk, but for audio listeners on other platforms, there is a link in the description to a gallery. On today's show,
99% of our guests are lovely. So they would joke and say, I've been photographing longer than you've been alive. And, I'd be so intimidated. Having no background in professional photography, I was worried and asked myself, am I going to be able to do this?
My guest today is something of a trailblazer and role model, a remarkable achievement for someone still so young. In the traditionally male-dominated safari industry in Botswana, she is, we think, Botswana's first homegrown female wildlife photography guide, not only hosting guests from around the world, but also inspiring young girls to get into the safari industry. And we're proud to say that we spotted and nurtured her here at Pangolin, where she's been one of our photo hosts for nearly 5 years now. It is, of course, the one and only Miss P, Pusetso Nteta. Hello, P. How are you today?
Hi, Toby. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Now, I think for all those people who don't know, would you like to tell everybody where you are in the world at the moment?
I am at the Pangolin Hotel here in Kasane in the Chobe. My home, pretty much.
Your home and your office. And it's rather warm today. For all those people who can hear a slight hissing sound in the background, we've allowed P to keep the air conditioning on. Otherwise, we're going to watch her expire live on this podcast, which won't be a great start. Anyway, P, thank you very much for joining me. I believe you've literally just said goodbye to a group of photographers. How was your last trip?
Oh, yes, I just did. They were wonderful. We were very lucky. We ended with a cheetah, which is an extreme luxury here in the Chobe, with an impala kill. So that was just magical. Yes.
Amazing. No, we don't get cheetahs very often in the Chobe. We get some leopards and lions, but very rarely cheetahs. So cheetah with a kill. There we go. Mm-hmm. Happy clients.
Very happy clients. Happy Pusetso as well. I'm very happy as well.
There we go. Oh, I'm delighted. If you're happy and the guests are happy, then everyone's happy. So, P, we asked you to choose 4 images from your ever-growing portfolio of images. How easy or difficult did you find that task?
It was quite the challenge because, like you mentioned, I've been doing this for some time now, and picking just 4 was quite tricky because I have some that are super sentimental to me, not because they're very good, but they remind me of the days when I was just starting. And the ones now, as I have grown so much that I'm like, oh, this is such a, in my humble opinion, such a great shot. And just trying to pick something between every stage that I've gone through has been quite the challenge, yes.
So without further ado, let's start with your first image, please. Would you like to tell the viewers and listeners about this photograph?
Okay, this is an image of a yellow-billed stork with giraffes in the background. They're bokeh, if that's even a term, but blurred in the background. And it's so telling of where you are. Yellow-billed stork and giraffe is such a classic Chobe scene. And of course, the beautiful sunset in the background.
I love yellow-billed storks. I think they're one of the most characterful birds that we get in the Chobe. This one is it breeding plumage? There's a lot of pink going on there in the wings.
It is. It's breeding plumage, yes. Makes it extra special.
Extra special. And how long ago did you take this photograph? Was this one of your first photographs or more recent?
This is a more recent image that I took a few months ago on a houseboat trip, actually.
So it's on the Namibian side of the river. And it's nice to have giraffes in the background as well, on such a clear background too. Yes. What were you thinking when you saw this bird coming in? Tell us about what you were thinking when this photograph was unfolding for you.
So I had the 400 f2.8 with me at the time, and I saw it coming in from the side. And it's just one of those things where I saw the giraffes in the background, and I love to play with bokeh just in general. So I thought, oh, I have this amazing lens. Let me see what I can get out of this. And obviously try to like expose quickly, correctly, get the shutter speed right for the bird. And yeah, it landed just at the right time. And it's maybe one of two that are sharp, but it was just one of those things I had to like think quick and think on my feet, and it happened to work. Yes.
So you're using a 400 2.8. Which body were you using at the time?
I was using my R6 Mark II.
R6 Mark II. Very good.
Yes.
That's the camera that we lend to all our clients when they come in. And as you're sitting there, you've got this yellow-billed stork coming in. Are you thinking to yourself, please land in front of the giraffes? Please land in front of the giraffes? Because if it hadn't, it'd be a very different photograph, wouldn't it?
That's true. I did. I was like, first, please land in front of the giraffes. And to me, please don't mess this up. Because it's just such a like a short window. And I was like, please, please, please. But yeah, just shot away. And, at this time of the day, especially, I guess we always just say, as we're losing light, high frame rates, spray and pray. And
Spray and
I
pray.
did, and it worked.
There we go. Well, that's it. You've got to keep firing away and going for it. Yellow-billed storks are fantastic to photograph. They are absolutely ginormous, aren't they? Because there was a real risk with the 400 2.8 that any closer to you, you're never going to fill it in the frame. You're going to crop the wings, and you're not going to leave enough room for the giraffes as well, I suppose.
Yeah, they are quite large. And it just happened to be at a distance where I could squeeze in the giraffe quickly. But like I said, I really had to think quick here. And the giraffe on the far right, you can see its back half. And it was unfortunate that it didn't make it, but I kept it in anyway, just because it added to the story. And obviously, I couldn't crop anymore because then we would have the second giraffe's head cut off. But yeah, I want to take what I get in the situation. So,
Well, there we go. So what I want to do is I want to touch on your story with Pangolin. You studied tourism management, didn't you?
I did.
Okay, talk about the day that you walked into Pangolin and came to have a chat with us about working for Pangolin.
This was 2019, and I needed to finish my internship for my degree. And at the time, a friend of mine knew Guts just from around town, as Kasan is such a small town. And he said, my friend needs to finish her internship. Could you please take her on? I walk in here and meet Janine and Guts and did department to department and ended up in the photography department where I was with Janine most of the time. And as the weeks went by, she was like, you know what, you're okay. And when you're done with school, you should consider coming back here. I went back to school, finished my degree, and thought, that was fun, but traditionally it is not a job that a lot of Botswana gravitate towards or even know about, to be honest. And even my parents were like, you're going where? And I thought, you know what, let me just work a traditional job. I worked in PR for a little bit, and I would come into Pangolin to work with the team, do a project with them. One of my more memorable ones was the one I did with them for Canon Women in Photography in Southern Africa. But still then, I wanted to come and work here, but I was afraid because, like you mentioned as well, there are not a lot of women who do this job. But one day Janine called me and she was like, Miss P, you need to make a decision now. It's either you're coming or, you stick to what you're doing. And thought about it. I had a chat with my dad. And in the end, they were like, you know what, go do your thing. If it doesn't work out, you can always come back home. And at the time, remember, this was just after the pandemic and nobody knew where things would really go, if things would go back to where they were. And it was just really taking a leap of faith. And here we are almost 5 years later. And I think I might have the best office in the world.
Oh, there we go. I'm absolutely delighted to have you part of the team. I'm sure we're going to discuss more about your life in wildlife photography with pangolin and how you've evolved over the years. But before we do that, let's move on to your second image, please. Would you like to tell the viewers and listeners about this awesome photograph?
Okay, well, this is an image of two wild dogs, and I shot them from behind. So you can't see their faces, but they're looking into the distance.
A lot of the photographs that we've had on the podcast recently have been proudly green season. Very, very green everywhere. And whenever I've seen a photograph like that, I've been trying to explain to the listeners who maybe haven't been to the show, but it doesn't always look like this. But this is basically it. This must be middle of winter in the Chobe. What time of year was this?
This was definitely winter. I forgot the month.
But somewhere June, July, August, somewhere there. Very, very dry. And why did you choose this image from your portfolio? What is it about this image that really resonates with you?
It's quite a few things, to be honest. Wild dogs already being so endangered and just looking kind of like into the future, not to sound dramatic, but just looking into this emptiness and an emptiness of them possibly going extinct, an emptiness of the environment just not having much to offer anything at the time. I love it, but it makes me a little bit sad. It's just so telling of the times with regards to them and their populations and the droughts that we've had over the years. You know, sometimes we have guests here and we love it when it's open and the pictures are a little bit cleaner, but we forget the impact on the wildlife. And at some point, at the very end of this time of the year, even some of the elephants, you can see their rib cages, and it's tough when you're maybe here for a little bit and move on to elsewhere. You don't really get to feel the essence of this time of the year, but when you're here for some time, you start to see the effects of how brutal Mother Nature can be.
Oh, I think so. I mean, it is very much slim pickings. You know, these are animals that they will chase down their prey, but they also enjoy using a little bit of cover to be able to get a little bit closer. But now it's very difficult for the dogs to get closer. And it is a really, really tough time of year. A lot of people have been told that this is the best time to come and photograph, but it can be quite heart-wrenching, can't it? When you see the animals really taking strain.
It's challenging. At the same time, you want to photograph it just beyond photography, but to document it. But you know, you really think about what you're photographing, and it can be a little bit heartbreaking. Yeah.
And we very rarely get wild dogs up in Chobe, but they cover such huge distances, and especially at this time of year where they're traveling even further. Was this taken from the boat or was it on a game drive? What were you doing?
This was on a game drive, and some of our guests who've been here will know Ellie Bay. So this was the opposite side of Ellie Bay on the game drive. Yes.
One of the most famous places to photograph elephants is a place called Ellie Bay, where lots of the elephants come down to drink in the afternoon. And this is probably on the path which leads back into the Chobe National Park as well.
Yes.
So yeah,
yes.
Wild dogs in the Chobe National Park. Going back to your story, you mentioned your dad was unsure about you becoming a wildlife photographer. Sorry. Is it still quite rare for women in Botswana to get into the safari industry?
Yes, I think he was scared for me because he was wondering, you know, how are you going to excel? Any parent would want their child to be in a position where they can grow. So he was a little bit worried, of course. But over the years, I've seen a few more women in this specific industry of wildlife photography, not as much as I would have loved, but slowly but surely, we're getting there. There are a few ladies that I'm in contact with that are in the industry and doing well. So I think if we obviously band together, yeah, we'll encourage other women to join the industry and see that it's actually possible to, you know, make a living and a career that you can actually really thrive in photography.
Excellent. Yes. Well, like I said, you are a trailblazer, and we're very, very proud of you and what you've accomplished with Pangolin. Long may it continue. How long was it from day one when you walked in? How many years did you train before you were given your first group to guide on a multi-day safari?
I think you never forget your first big group. It's many emotions at the same time. But I came back full time in 2022, and a whole year of training. And obviously we are assessed regularly to see if we meet the standard and or beyond. And yes, my mentor Janine has given me the green light. And yeah, I'd like to say a few months into it, but a few months of serious training.
And that's with Janine. And let me tell everybody, for those of you who know Janine, she is a hard taskmaster and does not let anybody cut corners. So this is day in, day out, practicing, proving with the portfolio of images. Nobody's allowed to lead a group until you've got a proper portfolio. And how difficult was it for you? You know, you are a young Botswana lady starting out in guiding for wildlife photographers, and you've got people coming who are older, probably, let's say, more worldly, and you know they've seen Janine and Charles and everybody on YouTube, and then you come along and say, hello, I'm going to be your photo host. What are your tricks for winning people over quickly on your trip?
At first it wasn't easy. It was quite intimidating. And 99% of our guests are lovely, so they would joke and say, I've been photographing longer than you've been alive. And I'd be so intimidated. And having no background in professional photography, wildlife photography, or photography in general, I was worried and asked myself, am I going to be able to do this and impress? But over time, it's just as with anything, you practice and it gets better. And I felt like, let me be patient with myself. As time goes by, things will start to make more sense, the things that I didn't know, and people come from all sorts of backgrounds of photography that come here. So someone would mention maybe a term that I'm not familiar with. I wouldn't pretend to know it. I'd just do my research about it and then try to have a conversation about it a little bit later. But at no point did I try to, fake it till I make it. It was what it was. I just knew that I'm putting in the work, and, eventually over time, it'll be okay.
And of course, I mean, the big ace up your sleeve is the Chobe far better than everybody else who you're hosting as well. So I think that levels the playing field a little bit. And I want to point out, for those people who don't know, I mean, obviously, P's mentioned she shoots with an R6 Mark II, usually 100 to 500 mil lens. But part of the training is not just learning how to photograph on your camera of choice. You've got to learn all the brands, haven't you?
I do. We have guests that come with all sorts of gear, from Pentax to Sony to Nikon, and you have to keep up with the ever-changing systems and ever-changing technology. So yeah, that's a big part of what I do, just to make sure that every guest has a similar experience in terms of me imparting my knowledge on how to operate your gear and get the best out of it, really.
That must be really challenging if you've got like 5 different brands on one boat at any one time and you're trying to shout out instructions, because there are so many different nuances, aren't there? But yeah, kudos to you. You've learned them. We've never been associated with one brand. We work with all the brands, and everybody's welcome at Pangolin, no matter what brand you use. We always say that the best camera in the world is the camera that you have in your hands. Isn't that right, P? That's what we say.
That is true. That is what we say, and it's very true.
It is very true. Okay, brilliant. Well, we're going to move on to your third image, but before we do that, we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we'll look at your next photograph. See you in a second. Welcome back to part 2 of the Pangolin Podcast with me, Toby Jermyn, and my guest today, Pangolin Photo Host, Miss P, Pusetso. Right, P, tell us about your third image, please, and why did you choose this one from your portfolio?
This is an image of 2 lionesses at sunset, lying in front of the sun, one almost directly in front of the sun. And it is an image that I chose because for the first time, lions being lazy worked to my advantage. They were just laying there forever. and the sun was setting, and you start to worry, are they going to do something interesting? Are we going to get silhouettes? And we were just like, let's just position the boat and have them be in front of the sun, and let's see what magic we can make from it. So they continue to just lay there as lions do, and you let your guests know the different approaches they can take to this, whether they silhouette the one that really focusing on the one that's in front of the sun, or pulling and pushing exposure compensation wise to see if we can get as much as we can out of our image. I shot it obviously with the details, and I had a little bit of light here at this time of day. The sun wasn't quite set yet. And yes, I underexposed enough not to lose the details of the sky, but also not to lose the lion that's sitting in front of the sun. Because naturally, in this light, with your metering, the lion would naturally disappear and turn into just a black patch. So I had to really think about how I'm exposing for this image just so that I can play with the dynamic range of my camera. So underexposing probably minus 2/3 just to keep the details of the sky, especially because the star of the show is the lions, but I love a very colorful sunset and clouds. Then in post-production, I had to do quite a bit of work on this. I had to lift the details of my lions so that you can actually see them, and then saturate the colors in the sky, play with a few gradients here and there just to create a little bit more dimension and a little bit of depth. One obvious one will be the one just underneath the lions, the earth underneath them, just so that they stand out a little bit more. So yeah, I think one of the main things of photography is having an opportunity and having gear, but also knowing how to capitalize on the situation and the equipment that you have.
And you've only got a few minutes because you know the sun's going to set. You can position it, you know that the sun's going to set right there. Going on to your editing. Now, you use Lightroom. Yeah? Is it Adobe Lightroom that you mainly edit on?
I use Lightroom Classic, yes.
By the way, if you are looking to get into Lightroom or editing in Lightroom, we have a free Adobe Lightroom editing course, which I'll leave a link to in the description down below. But do you find that the guests now are wanting to do more and more editing? They're getting into the art of editing as much as photography?
I think so. Editing itself, of course, is a skill and an art. So I see that, as Lightroom specifically gets better and better, guests are really enjoying that process. It's just always, I have this discussion with every other group about, the fine lines of editing, how much is too much, but they really are enjoying the options that they have to enhance their photos and make the best of whatever situation that they were photographing in.
And often, they will have an extraordinary moment which they can kind of save. Maybe they didn't get the best photograph, but can save in post-production. But yes, you're right. I think sometimes people can overdo it, and then it becomes a bit strange. And some people think that editing is cheating. What do you think about that? Is editing cheating?
I want to hear the point that editing to a degree is cheating, but if you're shooting raw, you do need to edit, and it's simply enhancing what's already there. If you're starting to maybe add a few things that were not originally there, I can see where that point could come in. But if you are really pulling out the details of what was already there and maybe beyond what your camera that you have was capable of, then I don't think editing is cheating. It's very much necessary when you're shooting raw files anyway.
Some people might say that animal eye tracking is cheating. The camera's doing all the work, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. I think it's all subjective. And I think, when people enter images into photographic competition, you have to be very honest about what you've done and what you haven't done. So, you know what? It's art. Even photography is manipulating pixels. And if you manipulate them a little bit more afterwards, then good for you. Why not?
True. Why not?
There we go. And most people, are they editing during the day on your workshops, or people then deciding, actually, do you know what? I'm just going to enjoy the scenery and I'll edit when I get home. So what percentage of people are really working their images during the day on safari?
I think this one is a 50-50. A lot of my guests that want to edit are the ones that are very new to whatever editing software they're using and just want tips and tricks just to get them some kind of foundation, and the guests who want to see if there are any other things that they've missed out on, how you would do it or your approach, because these softwares is, as the expression goes, there are many ways to skin a cat. So what your approach could be and your creative thinking, because like we said, it's an art. And then you have guests that just feel like it's overwhelming, and it can be, because part of then editing is culling. And
Yeah,
we all know that culling can be a bit of a nightmare. The softwares are trying to make it easier for us to do that. I see that Lightroom now has assisted culling, which is pretty
Oh,
cool.
really?
It's a very new feature, but we'll see how well it works. I'm yet to test it out as well. But yeah.
Is it automatically culling now? Are you going to put your memory card in and say, get rid of all the images that you think are not worthy? Is that what's happening?
It looks like it. It looks like it.
Really?
I just opened my computer yesterday and I saw it, and I'm yet to really explore it and do my research on it. But if it's accurate, then it would save us lots and lots of time and hours.
That sounds dangerous.
Of culling.
That sounds dangerous. I think that we're all going to spend many, many years going and checking that, aren't we? Going in there, going, don't delete automatically, whatever you do. Because the problem is, how does it decide? You may have deliberately done some motion blur and You've got a beautiful panning shot and it's gone, no, delete. You're like, no, don't do that. That was intentional.
Yeah, it sounds like the solution is also now the problem, but we'll see.
The solution is now the problem. Yes, okay, I like that. Then we're going to have that as my motto from now on. The solution is now the problem. Okay, brilliant. Tell you what we're going to do is we're going to move on to your fourth image now, please.
This is a female elephant with a baby elephant underneath it, silhouetted. And the baby elephant is right underneath mom, between her fore and hind legs. And there's a bit of a gap between them, so you can really see the outline of both mom and baby. I mean, this one is just a really special one for me living in the Chobe. We are elephant people. We're known for our elephants. And we get so many of these opportunities to photograph elephants at sunset, especially in the dry season. But to have this one specifically, it has a very nurturing and maternal feel to it. It's a lovely motherly image. It's
Well, you're a mum, aren't you? How many kids?
Yes.
2 kids.
Yes, I have little ones, and when I took this photo, I was just like, wow. It just says a lot about the love of a mother, the protection of a mother, and just how, your mom is your first love, and she's your cocoon.
Yeah. Well, there we go. I remember, I saw you just before you well, I was going to say popped, but you didn't pop, obviously. But
I might as well have popped.
You may as well have popped. But you were working up until, I think, quite clear. You were getting there, weren't you? A lot of us were very worried that we were going to get a call from you out somewhere in the Chobe National Park going, it's happening. Let me go. And it was summertime as well, and it was hot.
Oh, yeah.
How do you balance that? Photography or guiding they're pretty antisocial hours. How do you manage to balance it with the kids? And how do you find that? But what a contrast in your day-to-day existence.
Yes. I get to go from elephants and lions to stories about preschool and coloring, and it's such a beautiful experience. And some of my guests, I'll tell them, I have bush babies, my kids get to play outside in Kasane, which is extremely safe. But it has its challenges, just like any other situation. And, it takes a village. I have a lot of support, and that makes it significantly easier. My fiance and my nanny and preschool, it makes it all possible, to be honest.
And you mentioned earlier on that you really learned a lot from Janine. Janine was your sort of mentor during the training process. Do you find that being a woman in this very male world, it gives you a slightly different perspective to that of the other male photographers you meet?
I think so. I think all parents are patient, mom or dad, but there's a certain level of patience that you need as a mom. And it applies then in other areas of just like when I'm photographing, and, it kind of gets a little bit boring, or, maybe I have a guest who's not quite understanding it as quickly as the other guests and be a little bit discouraged. And it just takes you pushing them as you would at home. Not that I'm comparing my guests to kids, but
Well, I don't know. Maybe sometimes is this the 1% you were talking about when you mentioned 99%?
Possibly. No, jokes. But just patience. I think it's a trait that, for me personally anyway, that I've built over time because of having to be so patient with little people that are trying to learn so much. Yeah.
Perfect. Going back to the image, this is a very young elephant. The idea is that baby elephants can fit under their mums up until about 1. Is that what you've heard as well?
Yes. Guys will have their own, theory as to how that works. But yes, that's usually what they say. And it was a very young elephant. We got to photograph it before it was silhouetted. And you could still see the pink behind the ears and the fuzz all over. And we also sat there with it the whole time. It was just a mixture of photographing, but just sitting there and really like absorbing this very intimate moment. It was quite special.
There is nothing more endearing than a baby elephant, and so full of character.
Yes.
Brilliant photograph. Now, I just want to ask you a question. When we touched on Janine teaching you photography, do you have like one thing that Janine taught you, a top tip for new photographers? What's the one thing that stands out for you that Janine really helped you get to grips with this?
Like I said, Janine has been mentoring me for many years, and she has taught me so much, so much. But overall, photography wise, was just going back to the point of patience. Be patient with yourself. When you're starting out and working in an environment like Pangolin, where you have all levels of photographers, you kind of like, I wanted to learn everything at once. I wanted to be so good, so quick, so bad. And in the process, I'd forget to really just enjoy my actual job and be excited to work, in a national park. And it was just kind of this like mode of desperation. And we had a chat one day, and I was just like, sometimes I'm just trying to like just absorb everything as fast as I can. And not that you shouldn't learn, but she just said, pace yourself. And if you don't enjoy it anymore, you've kind of lost the plot. So that was the biggest lesson for me I think that applies to photography, but just overall with anything really.
There we go, a life lesson. If you don't enjoy it, move on. But obviously you are still enjoying it because you're still here. So we're very pleased about it as well. Okay, brilliant. We are going to take our second break now. And when we come back, we're going to see a photograph that Pusetso has chosen by another photographer that she admires. So we'll see you in a second. Welcome back to the final part of today's episode of the Pangolin Podcast with my guest today, Pangolin Photo Host, Miss P. We're at the part of the show where we've invited our guest to select an image by another photographer that they admire. So would you tell the viewers about this photograph, who took it and why you chose it?
This is an image of a squirrel in a beautiful autumn scene, probably shot in Europe. This is an image by Malini Chandrasekhar. I'm sorry, Malini, if I'm butchering your last name. But yes, I love this image. The squirrel is very small in the frame. Top right corner and the left-hand side is these autumnal colors that are orange and green, something that we don't really get to experience here in Botswana and Chobe, not for long anyway. So this is like a TV scene for me personally anyway. It looks like something out of like a European photography magazine. I love it for a few reasons. The colors are spectacular, but also shooting small. When I take my guests on these trips and we are looking for subjects, it's always about the clean background and the clean surroundings and no obstructions. But this one, again, just like the environmental aspect of it, of not always looking for the cleanest shot. And in this case, she used bokeh to her advantage. And I think that's also an important thing in photography, is just knowing how to use the environment that you're already in instead of like chasing this image that usually we have in our head of, oh, I'd like an image of this and that, and no obstructions is usually the goal. But I love the execution and what I think was the thought process behind this.
I love the fact, like you say, it is a small subject. Anyway, it's a squirrel. Speaking from somebody who has experienced many, many autumns and many, many squirrels, we don't see squirrels as being exotic, whereas a grey squirrel like this might seem to you as being quite exotic because it's not something you're going to see every day. Some people might say that squirrels are just rats with very good PR, and you coming back from a PR background might agree. But this is a beautiful, intimate shot, isn't it? And when you told me you were going to present Malini's image, I thought, I know this name. How do I know this name? And then I looked it up, and Malini is arriving at the hotel today as we're recording this because she won a stay at the Pangolin Chobe Hotel in the Pangolin Photo Challenge. So there we go. But you've never met Malini, have you?
I've never met Malini. I followed her on social media. We followed each other, and I'd comment on her work and she'd comment on mine, and we just had like a back and forth. And a few days back, she said, "Hey, I'm coming," and like we said, I'm going on leave, but I'll get to meet her briefly. But yeah.
This is what I also love about the wildlife photography community is everybody's all around the world, but social media is a great way for people to come together. And I love the fact that you have sought this person out whose images you like. And there's this support going on. She's supporting what you're doing. You're supporting what she's doing. And now your paths are crossing, albeit briefly. It's a shame we didn't organize it for you to host her group, but there we go. Do you think you're going to try and emulate this photograph? We do have tree squirrels, slightly different squirrels in the Chobe. I'm going to set you a task. By the end of 2026, I want to see a beautiful, intimate shot of a tree squirrel from the Chobe River, a la Malini's squirrel in the autumnal colours. Do you accept the challenge?
I accept this very challenging challenge.
Everybody needs a challenge, P. Let's go for it. If we do, we'll hang it up on the wall at the hotel. Let's go for it.
Okay.
P, thank you so much for your time. I know you must be exhausted. Coming straight off the back, literally just wave goodbye to your guests, straight into the studio. I hope you enjoy some downtime, go spend some time with the family. But before you go, there is the one big question that we ask everybody. Now, at the top of the show, we say that you are allowed to take these photographs to hang on the wall of your humble dwelling somewhere in the world, but you get to choose where that humble dwelling is going to be. You can take the family, that's fine, but where would you like to go if you could live anywhere and photograph anywhere in the world? Where would it be?
Oh, my word. Funny enough, I was with Bella, my guest, who I got to spend quite a bit of time with, just chatting. She's a journalist, and she was looking at some aquatic bird. And I thought to myself, you know what, if I could live where I could see puffins every day, that would be quite epic. So yeah, if I could.
You're going to go and live where? Sorry, we just need to point out that Bella is the producer of this show as well. So Bella is in the background somewhere. Bella has told you the place to go to is where puffins can be found. Yes. Brilliant. So Bella's just said now, I can hear Bella in the background saying, you are formally invited to go and photograph puffins with her in Wales. There you go. If this was a way of getting a free trip to Wales, this seems like a bit of a conspiracy. And Bella's saying she's not paying. There we go. So let's do a shout out to Bella, who is the producer on this show. And she sits in the background making sure that everything works. Thank you very much, Bella, for all your hard work. So yes, okay, you're allowed to have your humble dwelling on the cliffs in Wales. When you go there, you might have a second thought about it. It's a little bit cold, a little bit wet, but there we go. But P, thank you so much for being on the show. Go and enjoy some decent, well-deserved rest and recuperation. And I will see you in the new year.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, wishing everybody a fruitful new year.
thank you for joining me on another episode of the Pangolin Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, we'd love to hear your comments and feedback, so please do leave them in the comments down below. If you're an audio listener, we'd love it if you could give us a star rating or a quick review as well. And if you don't want to miss the next episode or any of the other wildlife photography videos, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Finally, don't forget to sign up to the Pangolin Photo Safari's Friday Focus newsletter. You can do that by heading over to pangolinphoto.com, or you can scan the QR code on your screen now. I look forward to seeing you on a Pangolin Photo Safari soon, and all that's left for me to say is that the Pangolin Podcast was hosted by me, Toby Jermyn, and as you already know, produced and edited by Bella Falk. Thank you.